do the half marathon. Now, I've been coaching people to run the marathon for 30 years. And then a couple of years ago, I decided, whoa, look at this. I'm spending a lot of time and effort coaching a blanket marathon training schedule when most of the people end up with a half. And lots, as an announcer for the Rock and Roll Marathon, you recognize that lots of people don't train.
No, they don't.
And you end up out there for hours and hours and hours. And not only are the athletes miserable, so are the volunteers. And some people don't consider the volunteers. You know, hey, well, they're supposed to be out here since I paid a fee. Well, that's not true. So what I've done was I revived the Best of Texas Race Series, and it gives you one race a month starting in January through October. Actually, this year the last race is the 2nd of November.
Ooh.
It's for SAC. It's San Antonio College Boot Camp. It's a 5-mile, 10-mile. So if you're running the half marathon in 2 weeks after that event, if you run the 10-miler comfortably, you're ready. So the whole series prepares you for the half marathon. And you get points, and at the end, we give out $1,500 cash to the top 5 winners.
Right.
Last year was the top 3 winners, and it pretty much all went to one family.
Because they're super fast.
Oh, yeah.
The fastest family in San Antonio, so pretty much they show up at any event. I think everybody takes medals. I mean, I've done a lot of races with them, and the Galvans, I mean, literally everyone wins their age group.
Oh, yeah.
If not the overall.
Yep.
So, but now it's a great series, the Best of Texas series. You can go to PurnellRacing.com for more information, find out what's coming up. Obviously, here on Thursday, Shirts, Texas is a great event. I know a lot of folks going to run it. My better half, that is the official start of her marathon training. And you've trained a lot of marathoners over the years and years and years you've been doing this. You've trained me and mine. How have you seen, I would say social media, but how would you see social media and just basically training evolve over the 30-plus years you've been doing this?
Well, I started out with training in 1980. When we first arrived here, I ended up down in Breckenridge Park, and there were a couple of doctors that were putting on the San Antonio Marathon Clinic. And I had just run in the Honolulu Marathon Clinic for 3 years, or 2.5 years. And I went down and joined this group, and one of the doctors quit. And he said, well, John, you know more about this than I do. You do it.
Right.
So technically, since September 1980, I've been putting on the San Antonio Marathon Clinic. In the old days, you just showed up in Breckenridge Park, and there was nothing written, nothing. There was no social media except when you showed up there.
Right.
Someone told you what to do that day and what to do the rest of the week, and then would see you next week.
Yeah, because I remember that. Because you go, I remember that. I must have been 12, 13 years old, and you're like, anybody running 2 miles slow? There's my son. He's gonna run with you. Okay, who's gonna run 10 miles fast? Okay, there's so and so, and that's basically how it was done. It wasn't, we're gonna post this on Facebook. Of course, Facebook wasn't around then. Actually, the internet wasn't even around then. But we're gonna post this. This is your running group. This is what you're gonna do. We didn't do all that. But those were the greatest times. I mean, I remember Honolulu Marathon training camps or clinics. Same thing we did back in the early 80s was you showed up, hey, how far you want to go? You're going to run with that person.
Right.
So that was amazing, man. It's evolved so much over the years where, and you and I have talked about this many, many times, but there's so many folks that read their stuff online and go, oh, that's the way I should do it.
Right.
But that's not the right way.
Right.
You should really get a coach and figure out how
Absolutely.
You should do it.
Because everybody's different. I could give you a schedule. I could give everybody the same schedule, but no one's the same. It would work for 10% of the group.
Right.
And the other 90% would either get injured, burned out, or quit. So it's much better to spend time with each individual and help them get through the bumps and grinds, if you will, to be prepared for this either half of the full marathon. But
because they're two, not to cut you off, but because those are two different animals.
Oh, yeah.
There's folks that can run a sub 130 half marathon, but once they get to 18, 19 miles, you always hear about the wall or whatever, but they're like, oh, this hurts. Marathons hurt.
Yeah,
and as you always said it, and you've told me this since I was, wee bitty kid, was half marathons are the perfect distance.
Yep.
And then what's the reason why?
Well, you have to be in shape to do it.
Right.
And no one asks you at the end if you won or not. And if you go out and run a marathon and you go to work Monday morning or Tuesday morning, whenever you're able to get back to work, they'll say, "Oh, you ran that marathon? Yeah. Did you win? Do I look Kenyan?"
Did I fly in to do the race? No.
Right.
But no, because the marathon is a total enemy. When I ran my first one, you were telling me, hey, just run to 20. And then once you're at 20, it's a whole, then you got a 10K left. Just figure out that last 10K. Because it really is. And a lot of you are like, oh, 20 is the wall, the wall, the wall. But you can really have a wall at mile 1. It depends on your body, obviously the weather, you're hydrated, mentally. Because, again, you've told me, you've been my coach for, but it's one of those things that running is 90% mental.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Michelle always asks me, how do you go run for so long and not think about it? I'm like, I'm thinking about running. I'm thinking about that card buyer. Hey, they got special beer, what have you. So you think about and just keep your mind not on running.
One of the other things talking about not on running, lots and lots of people these days wear sing so they can hear their music. And unfortunately, they blot out the rest of the world. Now, I understand why they do that. It's called disassociation. And some people cannot run and think about what they're doing. They want to think about something else, the next song that's on the schedule. But unfortunately, you've got to be aware of what you're doing.
Right.
And you got to be aware of where you are and what's going on around you. I mean, I see people now out in the middle of nowhere in the park running by themselves, and they can't hear someone approach them. I guarantee you, I want to know if there's anybody within 100 yards of me, because I don't know what they're going to do next.
It's interesting bringing that because we have a couple points that we're going to talk about. Earphones and running with them in races, which we've seen. There was the Army 10 and 20 miler. Young lady did not turn to the finish line because she was so intent in her music that she couldn't hear me on the microphone, which obviously if you heard me announce, I'm loud. And I'm going, turn right. And there's people yelling at her. Rudy, one of your great guys, is telling her, go this way, go this way. And she's just so oblivious to, listen to Barry Manilow, la, 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 la. And then she turned back around like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, hello, take your headphones out.
This was her first pass. She had to go do it again. When she ran through when we finally got her back on track, she ran through the start-finish line.
I remember.
And started out again. And you go up about, I don't know, in those days about 100 yards or so, and you turn left and go out to the street. And she went straight through the turn.
Right.
I'm in my truck blowing the horn.
I remember that.
And I went about 25 or 30 yards beyond the turn and rolled my window down and yelled at her. And she went, what's wrong? And I said, take one of those ears off so you can hear. You've already passed the turn point already. Again.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I don't know if she ever came back or not. I think she's probably still out there running around Fort Sam.
Well, Gary's on Facebook right now texting me, and we're going back and forth. He's like, I was just going to mention about the music. Safety. You want to be able to hear emergency info, and there's a lot of races now banning them. Now, USA Track and Field official, the official stance is they're not allowed in races. I know rock and roll bans them, but people like Michelle and I, look at Michelle over there rolling her eyes, but I used to be one of those soul runners that I couldn't stand having music in my ears, but now I'm like, okay, I need music to keep me going or whatever.
Right.
But I'm still. It's not a force. It's not Star Wars or anything, but there's a lot of races, and you've done it as well as a race director here locally, and I'm sure Gary has seen that, and people are listening have seen it. Is that when people are at the race instructions, when you're saying, hey, you're going to be going this way and this way, they're not listening. The first thing they do is they take their headphone out going, what did he say?
Right.
What are we supposed to do?
Right.
No, leave them home. And Gary's typing right now, so I'm sure he's got an input on that. But there's so many things. And we talked about that lady who was at the race. Michelle has said very nice things to me politically while we're running, saying, I'm in the zone. Not those so words, but she's in the zone. So it's bad. So Gary's saying, I tell runners, you need to listen to yourself while you run. You need to get the feedback from your body.
Right.
And you're not doing that while you're listening to Barry Manilow or Celine Dion or whoever.
No. You're completely disassociating.
Yeah.
And I've known people to end up with stress fractures because they ran into trouble and didn't realize it because they were disassociating and didn't know where they were and what they were doing.
Right.
And that stress fracture is the first sign of a break. So if you ignore a stress fracture long enough, you're going to end up with a break, not just a stress fracture. So, there's lots of things that go on physically and mentally that you need to be aware of at all times.
So what would your recommendations be for folks that obviously are running with their headphones? Take one out.
Yeah,
correct.
Absolutely. That's minimum. The best thing, of course, is if doing a race, is to leave them off because you can't hear instructions. I mean, I won't mention any names, but there's a coach here in town when he was a youngster, ran into a windshield.
What?
Yeah, he was listening. This is in the old days. He was listening to his
one of those big CD case things.
No, right. No, he had a
he had an 8-track player.
A Walkman.
A Walkman. There
he
you
had
go.
a Walkman on, and completely disassociated and ran right out into traffic and got hit by this car.
Oh my goodness!
But now he's a coach. I guarantee his athletes don't wear anything.
Well, I don't like it when I see those obviously at races and everything because it's like, okay, you got to listen to instructions. I'm glad you're listening to your Celine on and everything, but there's things that we have to put out as officials, as announcers that you really need to pay attention to. So we're telling everybody, unplug, listen to us. Obviously, like I said, so USA Track and Field stance is at races is don't wear them. That's a safety factor.
Right.
As Gary's talking about, as you're talking about, as I've talked about, safety. And where I train, Michelle said her biggest fear is I'm not going to hear someone coming because someone's texting or whatever. And we have that problem in San Antonio lately,
right.
Around the country actually, where people are texting while they're driving or doing what God knows what they're doing. But a lot of runners, cyclists, walkers are getting hit because motorists aren't paying attention. So where do you feel is the safest place to run? I mean, on Fort Sam, we used to run around Parade Field. You're not allowed to do that anymore because some old colonel's wife got upset that, she was late for the commissary. But where do you see, and Gary being former military police over there at Fort Sam, I'm sure he's got something to say about that. But where do you see the safest place to run is in San Antonio?
Well, I mean, obviously there's lots of safe places to run. I mean, I now...
Wait. Let me rephrase that real quick. I know to cut you off. From when we started doing this in the early 80s till now, how do you see where is the safest place to run? And how do you see San Antonio's progressed in the safetiness of the athletes?
Well, nowadays, I mean, in the old days, you didn't have any choice. We would start at Brackenridge Park and we would run to the west side. We'd run over to the YMCA. The marathon actually finished at the YMCA in the early days.
Right.
We would run to Woodlawn Lake and back, just all over the place, and basically out running in traffic. And it can be safe, but let's face it, the junkyards are full of cars because they hit each other.
That's true.
And they have lights and shiny stuff and much, much larger than a runner.
Right.
So I tell runners, stay out of the way of cars because they hurt. But the truth is, nowadays, we're fortunate. We've got greenways. You can go pretty much anywhere you want in San Antonio, and within a couple of miles, you can be in touch with a greenway. Last Saturday morning, I went to Tobin Park. That's at 410 between Starcrest and Harry Wurzbach, and did 7 miles.
Right.
Never saw a car. The only thing
Right.
I saw that was dangerous was some of the people that own bicycles, and I own 2 of them, think that those greenways are bicycle racing courses.
Oh, man, that's a whole different topic. That's a whole different topic. Because I've done those. I mean, I obviously coming from a bike racing kind of background, I used to scream at people, slow down. It's not a track. You want to race, go out on the road.
Right.
Oh, it's too dangerous. Well, don't be racing on a pathway.
Right.
We've got runners, we've got walkers, we've got families with their baby joggers out here.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
slow down. So, I mean, and I hate to say it, but cyclists are some of the most arrogant and inconsiderate
right.
people.
I agree.
And I'm saying that nicely, that there are. So, here, Gary, yes, it is. Oh, I can go all day long about bike riders. Because
when I put on races on the trails, I hire police officers, and the purpose of the police officers is not for, obviously, traffic control of vehicles.
right.
It's for bicycles.
Right.
They ride their bicycles up and down the course.